This podcast is proud to be sponsored by Tuvu. Tuvu connects people, families, and communities on their values-based social media platform. There's no ads, no explicit content, just fun. Check it out at tuvu.com. Rebecca Friedrichs was a longtime teacher with a big heart for kids and for teaching. But at the start of her career, she learned a hard truth. Her union did not care about the children or their education. They wanted money and they wanted power. Well, to get them, they would brutalize any parent or teacher who stood in their way. Rebecca joins us today to give advice to moms on getting their kids a quality education. Stay with us.
You know, I've never really felt comfortable sharing pictures of my kids on social media. Then I found Tuvu, a premium social app with an actual, authentic community. No bots, no one trolling me or my family. Just clean, wholesome content you can trust.
Welcome to the Moms for America podcast. Each week, special guests tackle the issues facing the moms of America today. Discussions include personal stories and advice on how moms can build a strong foundation of faith, family, and freedom in their homes and country. Hi, moms. I'm Debbie Curlitis, your host. And yes, thank you so much for coming by for the Moms for America podcast. We're always so delighted to have you join us. At the top of the show, I always do a quick reminder. Moms, please like, subscribe, and share the podcast with your mama friends. Also, here at the beginning, I also say, moms, are you a part of our mama group? Are you a part of Moms for America? If not, please join us. There is no membership. There's no fee. Nothing. We are here to help support you, moms, on your journey through motherhood. We are moms uniting all across the country. We are fighting for faith, family, freedom, and the Constitution. All you do is you go and check us out at momsforamerica.us, sign up for our newsletter. In fact, we have all kinds of forms that you can fill out, whether you're interested in education, podcasts, webinars, seminars, it's all there. We are loaded with great resources for you moms. Again, go to momsforamerica.us and join the movement. Also, if you have an idea, a question, a topic for the podcast, would you please email me at podcast@momsforamerica.net. I would love to hear from you. Alrighty, well, on to today's program. Rebecca Friedrichs is a hero to teachers and a villain to unions. She taught in the public schools for 28 years, and she has seen firsthand the negative influence that unions have over teachers and over our schools. Her lawsuit to free teachers from forced union membership was argued before the U.S. Supreme Court. Rebecca has written the book Standing Up to Goliath and is the founder of For Kids and Country, a national movement of citizens uniting to restore our schools and our culture. But before we meet Rebecca, here's a short clip of a presentation she gave at a recent conference in Dallas.
The unions are not teachers. They aren't even a union in the traditional sense. Who are they? They're communists. They're communists. They're exploiting teachers to get a handle on your kids, to get their minds and to get their bodies. It's sick, and we need to call them what they are. They're demons, and they're doing the work of the devil.
Wow, those are some really strong words. Welcome, Rebecca, to the Moms for America podcast. We're so glad to have you.
Well, I'm really glad to be here, and in strong words indeed, but they are truth. And it's so important that we all awaken to that truth, that these people really are the enemies of our children and our country, so that we can fight them and win on behalf of our kids.
Okay, well, before we get started with all that, I'd love to have you talk a little bit about your family, a little bit about your tribe.
Wow, nobody ever asked me about my family. I'd love to share. So I'm married to Charles. We have two sons. Our older son is Kyle. Our younger son is Benjamin. Kyle was married about a year ago, and he and his wife just delivered us our first grandbaby, an adorable little boy. And so we're grandparents now. And
Congrats.
our younger son, Our younger son, Benjamin, has not found the right woman. Any of you conservatives out there, he's looking for a bride. He works for SpaceX. He's an amazing guy. And we miss him because he's down in Texas now. But that's basically my family. And
Yes.
we're all 100% behind this fight. We all believe that it is key to fight for the kids in order to save the country.
Absolutely. Well, congratulations on being a grandma. I heard that's the best thing ever. I'm not there yet, but so fun. And congratulations over there to your tribe. All right. So,
Thank you.
Rebecca, let's start a little bit with your teaching career. Did you always know you wanted to be a teacher? I mean, I hear that teaching nurses, doctors, they are just kids know that from a very young age. Was that like that
Yeah.
with you?
Sixth grade. Yeah, I was 12 years old. Absolutely knew I wanted to be a teacher. My husband's the same way. He was a teacher professor. He knew when he was really young. In fact, I would say most of the great teachers out there are like that. It's a calling. Like you
Hmm.
knew for a long time that you were supposed to be a teacher. The problem teachers out there are the ones that the unions hand select and drop in your school, right? They don't really belong there.
Right.
But yeah, I always knew I wanted to be a teacher. And one of the things that inspired me was I grew up in California and I did not get the best education in California public schools. They were already falling apart I mean, I was in kindergarten in 71. So they were already bad. They'd already removed the
Right.
phonics. They'd already done all kinds of things to harm our schools. And as a child, because I'm a really curious sort, love learning. I was always a great student. But there were always these missing pieces for me. Like the
Mm.
teacher would teach us little parts but wouldn't teach us the whole. And so I remember thinking, I want to teach so I can help kids to see the big picture and the
Mm.
small picture and connect the dots and to really understand, really have a full grasp of knowledge. And so that was one of the things that inspired me. And besides, I just adore little kids and I love seeing the light go on and all that.
Yeah,
So yeah,
it is a calling.
teaching, it is
Yeah.
definitely.
So now you taught for 3 decades, is that correct? Do I have that right?
You do, yeah. I taught in California public schools. I also taught Sunday school for, oh my goodness, like 12 or 14 years. I taught Sunday school as a volunteer. But I taught in California public schools. I taught kindergarten, first, second, third, and fourth grades. I love them
Wow.
all, but kindergarten is my all-time favorite. And I'll tell you why. I love kindergarten because, um, unfortunately, the current model in
Mm.
our public educational system is we put children into a grade based on their age. That's not how you should do it. You should put a child into a grade level based on their merit. Have they learned how to read and learned all the mathematics in order to move to the next level? Well, we just move them on no matter what, unfortunately.
Right.
So when I taught fourth grade, I would start the year with maybe two-thirds of my class were way below grade level in reading. How was I supposed to teach them fourth grade material when they didn't have a fourth grade
Sure.
um, understanding of reading or mathematics or writing? So when
Right.
I taught kindergarten, I was able to lay that foundation. I loved it. I don't care if you came into my class speaking zero English, you left kindergarten reading and writing and loving school and loving
Uh,
books and you had a great foundation in mathematics and number sense and all that. So that's why I love kindergarten because you can see the growth in every child and you can reach every child. It's not like they're so far behind. Everybody's beginning. So
yeah.
so kinder's my favorite.
And, I love that because I think kindergarten, well, one is moms are always terrified to send their kids off to kindergarten because then you feel like you're giving them to the other mama at school, not literally, but you're just, kindergarten's tough. I mean, you're little, it's your first experience with education. So I can see why you loved it so much. And I can see why it's so important to me, us as moms, having a great kindergarten teacher with our kids because it's their first experience with
Yeah,
education.
it's vital. You don't have a great
Yeah.
foundation, the rest of your education is going to be horrible. And
Right.
that includes the teacher needs to be loving, needs to be a safe environment. A lot of these parents, don't realize it, but they're handing their kids over to the government, really.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you don't have a great teacher in the room, all kinds of havoc can be wreaked in that classroom. So, yeah,
Yeah.
great teachers, loving teachers are really important to those little kids.
So good. 100% agree. So now, over the 3 decades, we're going to get into your story with the union and what's happening in today's current educational system. But I want to talk a little bit about the fact when you have 3 decades, 30 years in teaching, how has this, what are like the blaring changes to you as a teacher from being on the other side of the desk? I mean, you started out, it was A, now it's Z, and it's gone crazy. We know that now. But what were some of the first things that maybe were unsettling or you thought were maybe a little bit different than what you signed up for?
Yeah, I was very naive when I decided to go into teaching. The first thing I can tell you that just blew my mind, I was a student teacher. I was 22 years old. It was 1987, and I was learning how to teach in a first grade classroom. I had the most amazing master teacher. Those kids could read. They loved school. No excuses. I mean, every child was thriving in that classroom. But every single day, Debbie, as I was gathering the children on the playground, I witnessed as another teacher, the one next door to us, would abuse the children. She'd grab them, she'd scream in their little faces, she'd
Mm,
yank them, and mostly she picked on the wiggly little boys who, come on, let's just let boys be boys.
right.
But, she wanted them to be, these perfect robots or something. And I was so shocked, and I went to my master teacher and I said, I'm a mandated reporter of child abuse and I see some. It's the teacher next door and I don't know what to do. And she set me down and she said, today's the day you learn about unions. And I found out that the unions were defending that lady's job. And so that was my first shocker,
Mm,
was that there was this outside, like as a student, I didn't realize there was an outside entity that had infiltrated our schools and was controlling the environment.
controlling.
And,
Yes.
right. And actually protecting the jobs of bad teachers who weren't
Mm,
even capable of teaching the subject matter, but also protecting abusive teachers. And then also kicking out really great teachers just because they happen to be new or whatever. And so that was the first thing that I can't say it was a change during my time teaching. It was always there. I just didn't see it as a child. And then as a teacher, I think the things that changed the most from, starting in the 80s and teaching all the way through a few years ago is the corruption used to be hidden. Like it was a
mhm.
dark thing. Teachers weren't aware of it. Parents weren't aware of it.
It's kind
Teachers
of
were really
hidden, right? It
baffled.
was kind of hidden,
Very,
right?
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
teachers were baffled. They were like, I remember sitting in the teachers' lounge in the 80s and 90s and going, I hear this sex ed thing is coming. I'm terrified of this. What is it? Where's it coming from? Like we knew something was coming, but we didn't know where it was coming from. And so now it's in your face. It's so gross and so extreme.
Right.
Nobody can miss it
So
now.
sad.
But what most of them don't realize is it's coming from the unions. They still don't realize that's the problem and that's the root of it. So it's become and I'm going to call it's an evil. The evil used to be hidden. Now it is just out there.
Mm,
And it's not trying to hide itself anymore. It's gotten enough of a stronghold that it feels that it's safe for it to come out and just take over because it feels that the rest of us can't do anything to stop it. I beg to differ. We must stop it. But I would say that's the biggest change that I saw.
yeah.
Another huge change is kids were already struggling with reading when I came in the 80s, and that's
Okay.
because in the 30s the unions and their friends worked really hard to remove phonics. So phonics instruction was largely removed in the United States of America by the 1960s and replaced with things like Dick and Jane, which is horrible. It's not teaching. Reading Dick and Jane, if you learned that way, I did, unfortunately. That's not reading. It's a look-say method. It's memorizing a bunch of words, basically. It's not learning how to decode words. It's not learning the sounds and how to blend them together. So that removal of phonics has created a horrific situation in the United
Mm,
States of America. And when I first started teaching, I could see the impact on about maybe 25% of the students. Now I see the impact on, 60, 65, 70% of the students. So we used to have, no dyslexia, and nobody had ever heard dyslexia in the 30s
right.
because it was a rare condition that hardly anybody had.
Okay.
But when you remove phonics and you bring in educational quackery, all of a sudden, that's what I saw. I saw the growth of dyslexia. I saw
Mm,
the growth of labeling children.
mm,
Sadly, and I don't mean to. I will say this carefully because I know I might make some enemies saying this, but I watched as we started labeling little boys things like deficit and disorder because little boys couldn't do a little girl's game and sit still all day like this, in a classroom.
correct. Yeah. I've
So
heard
I
this
watched this.
again and again, right? Yes.
Yeah, so I watched this growth of calling, creating a system that's impossible for children to thrive inside the system, and then calling the kids names for not being able to thrive, and then creating a system where you're not teaching them truly how to read, how to write, how to compute. You're not doing it the right way. You've brought in, horrible curricula, and then blaming it on the kids for not being able to learn. So that was a huge change that I saw. And now we see millions and millions of functional illiterates in this country, kids who can't make change, who don't have number sense, and that's all the fault of the public schools. And I'm not blaming it on individual teachers. There's a lot of amazing teachers out there who did everything they knew to do right, but they were trained incorrectly in the university. They were taught lies. They were taught quackery, and they just don't know. And then
Right.
those who really do know how to do it are in such a corrupt system. They might impact a child for 1 year, but then the child goes on to all these other teachers that don't really know how to teach. So that's what I saw is the growth of incompetence in the system, and then blaming it on the kids for not being able to thrive.
Yeah. It's a cycle that is, it almost looks like it's not fixable. Like we can't even get out of this cycle, but hopefully, we can make some change. And by people like yourself writing books, taking on unions, exposing, educating, we are making a lot of change. We're seeing a lot of change around the country, and a lot of people looking at education differently, and definitely standing up, speaking up. I know that's the message of your book. You talk so much about unions because that's really where your journey kind of begins and takes place. You say that unions are demons and they're doing the work of the devil. You kind of just talked about a little bit previously in your conversation. What what is for those that are not maybe understand this situation or this problem, what is happening with unions all across the country in the school districts and with these teachers?
Yeah, so first of all, to make it clear, I'm talking about government unions. So government unions were illegal in the United States of America for all of our history until suddenly they were legalized. Even leaders of regular trade unions said there should never be government unions. It's a corrupt system. You can't use government money, government tax dollars to pay people who then pay a private union and then bargain with the government. It doesn't work. It's corrupt. So the government unions are extremely corrupt, and the so-called teacher unions are the most corrupt of all of them. So the reason I say they're demons, they're pushing a demonic agenda. Let's put it that way. So these government unions, and many people think, oh well, they're good. They're getting teachers raises, and
Right. They're
they're
fighting for the
representing.
teachers, equality, help, right,
Right.
assistance.
So when it's sold like that, oh sure, that sounds great. How wonderful. That's not what they're doing. So I was a teacher, for 3 decades, and I served as a union rep for 3 years because I saw
Oh,
all this corruption in the unions, and I was forced to pay them as a condition of employment. And I thought, wait a minute, myself and my teacher friends, we don't agree with this corruption. We don't agree with, the sexualization of children, or we don't agree with undermining parents and parent rights. And we don't agree with these things. We are parents, we want what's best for the kids. So I stepped up as a union rep. And the reason I say they're pushing a demonic agenda and truly doing the bidding of Satan is because I saw on
right.
the inside their whole agenda, and it is a communist agenda. Communists are atheists. They believe in humanism. They believe in worshiping humans, not God. And the communist agenda has led to millions upon millions upon millions of deaths,
Yeah.
and
Yes.
total destruction of liberty, tyrannical leadership, and that's what the unions are. They're tyrants. And so just an example of some of the things that the unions push that would help your audience to understand why I call it a demonic. Well, first of all, so the scripture says that Satan is the father of lies.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? It says he's the
Agree.
accuser of the brethren. It
Mm-hmm.
says he comes to kill, steal, and destroy. Okay? So the unions came into our schools, immediately started accusing Christians. I've been mocked by union leaders for being a Christian, as have my other union colleagues. We've been in union buildings,
Hmm.
multiple of us. We were all Christians. One was a Jew, and they mocked us to our faces. And they just assumed we weren't Christians. They assume everybody thinks like them.
Hmm.
I have been mocked as a Christian at California Teacher Association annual meetings. So they accuse. So they're accusers. They're liars every day of the week. They claim to represent teachers when they don't. They claim to represent children when they don't. They claim that all these teacher strikes and all these things, they claim they're speaking for teachers. They're not. I have teachers around the country who have told me that when they were forced to go out on strike, that Antifa was out there. So they got Antifa in the front with the few nasty teachers in the district, and then all the good teachers are in the back, terrified, embarrassed to be there. So it's all a lie. It's
A lot of
typical
manipulation, right? A lot of
manipulation, propaganda, cartel-like behavior, mafia tactics, where if someone dares to speak out, I dared to speak out. I think it was my 5th year of teaching, and I said, hey, there was a voucher initiative in my state, and I said, hey, parents should be able to decide where their kids go to school. Oh my goodness, you'd have thought that I said, some evil thing, because I was called a radical right winger in front of all my colleagues and then isolated for the entirety of the school year. No one would talk to me. So that's how unions treat people. And so that alone is in my opinion, you don't treat people that way. You don't isolate people, bully people. That's a horrible agenda. So this whole sexual agenda against our kids, the unions are behind that. They're behind the gender confusion, saying that there's an unlimited number of genders. They're behind telling kids in our schools that they should be transgender.
Can I
The
ask you this,
unions,
Rebecca, really quick?
sure.
When we think about this, I wouldn't think that, like I would think maybe, teachers or outside influences are the ones that are bringing this in. But explain the process of why the unions are so powerful. They decide, and who runs the union, so we can understand kind of maybe a little bit of the pecking order. So the
Mm.
unions, somebody runs the union. The union tells the teachers, the school board, the this, the that, and this is how it goes?
I love this question.
Come on.
So
I gotta get
the
this.
u yeah, the unions run our public educational system. They run the federal government. In my state, they run the legislature in California. The unions have a 2/3 supermajority in California. So government unions, let's just stick with the teachers union. So the teacher union, so-called teacher union, they're not really teachers. So they're run by the administrative people at the administrative level in the unions. So the president, the vice president, the secretary, all those in the unions. None of them are ever talking to regular teachers like me or asking us our opinion. They bully us. They run roughshod over teachers. So those unions are pouring millions upon millions into school board races and getting their preferred school board candidates onto the school boards. And up until a couple years ago, most parents weren't paying attention. I
Right.
mean, for years, I would go to school board meetings and I'd be the only one there for years throughout my entire career. So parents, the one thing where parents really need to take responsibility is they fell asleep and they trusted the government with their kids. And so they maybe didn't realize that these unions were fox in the hen house. So the unions were at every school board meeting,
Yes.
always there. So they pour millions into getting their candidates on the school boards. So majority of school boards, especially in my state like mine, California, are run by union controlled
Right.
candidates.
And
How
in
does a
fact, if you
union
run, right, in fact, if you run and you are not a union candidate, you are really fighting in a complete uphill battle for any type of election, because the money that they poured into and the bullying is out the door as far as school board elections. 100%.
exactly, exactly. And a really important thing for people to understand, the unions manipulated, propagandized basically the PTA in the 60s and 70s, and they terrified the PTA to such a degree that the
Mm.
PTA took a stance of neutrality and is now basically run by the unions. So the PTA cannot take any stance opposite that of the unions because the unions
Yeah.
bullied them into that. So parents don't realize. I was a PTA member for years. I was the PTA teacher rep for years. Okay, so I didn't know either. I'm just as guilty. Okay, I was paying into it. But as the PTA teacher rep is when I started waking up because I started seeing the agenda, like the sexual agenda, all of it is in the
Yeah.
PTA, all of it. So
Ah.
what they do is they manipulate. This has happened for years. And I have a story in my book about this, about how a slate of great parents ran for school board in Jeffco County, Colorado. This is like, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago. I don't remember the dates. They won. And the union immediately, the day they won, the union, okay, this is Colorado, the union flew in agitators from Chicago. Okay, this is how
Oh
much
boy.
money the unions have. They're influencing Colorado with people from Chicago. Those people stayed on the ground for a year and a half and bullied these people off the board. How did they do that? They manipulated PTA parents. They started having meetings in PTA homes and telling the PTA all these nasty things about these school board parents who were really good people. They
Yeah.
turned the parents against the great candidates, chased them off the board, and now they have control again. So parents have to start awakening to the fact that they've been propagandized for a long time through the PTA. Now look, you're a PTA mom baking cookies. I'm not talking about you. I'm not talking about the local level PTA parents working their tails off to have a carnival. Look, I've done it all with you. It's not us. It's up. It's the county. It's the state. And the national level of PTA. Totally corrupt. I have a whole chapter about it in my book about the PTA. So the unions have gotten control of the PTA. The unions are in bed with lots of special interest groups, ACLU, Southern Poverty Law Center, Gay, Straight, Lesbian Education Network. There's like
Planned Parenthood.
hundreds.
Right.
Planned Parenthood, big time. There's
Yeah.
hundreds of organizations, special interest groups that the unions are in bed with. How did it all happen? The unions were the first ones to open the door into the public schools. So the union, NEA was started in 1857, and they started pushing their way into the public schools. And they got in, early 1900s, 1920s, 1930s, they get in. Teachers didn't want them, but they forced their ways in. They started getting, the publishers started becoming members of the union, right? So they're controlling the publishers. So the unions literally control everything. They pour so much money into candidates. They gave $1 billion to Obama in his second
Right.
time for president. So they put all these horrific people in office. Like I said, in my state, they have a 2/3 supermajority in our state legislature. We can't get anything done on our side. People think Californians are crazy. We're not crazy. We've had fraud for a long time, and the unions run our state. So these unions have gotten in, and it's important for people to understand the unions, if you think about it, every government agency and institution is unionized. The CDC is unionized. That's why they're corrupt, right? The DOJ is unionized. The VA
All
is
these
unionized.
government
The DMV,
jobs, right? All the
all
government
these government
jobs,
jobs.
too.
Exactly. And they're all controlling something. Like the DMV, that's where you sign up to vote. Okay.
Right.
I mean, it's unbelievable what these government unions are doing to destroy the foundations of our schools and all of our agencies and institutions in America. And they're doing it that's why I call it a demonic agenda. They do not love the United States of America, which is built upon Judeo-Christian virtue. Our founders told us the only way to keep a free republic is with a well-educated, moral citizenry that can self-govern. These people want our kids to be uneducated, immoral, so tyrants can control them. And that's the bottom line. So that's the
Incredible.
basics of how it goes. There's a lot more to it, but that's the basics.
And I think everyone has to I think a lot of people understand this, but just the unions have become such a political movement. They are a political arm of the Democratic Party. And again, so many teachers I know just maybe are not agreeing with it, and they feel stuck and they feel pigeonholed and bullied and so on and so forth. Let's talk about some of the things in your book and your story, kind of like your journey through exposing this, and what happened. How did you step out, and tell us what you decided to do?
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked about the book because my book basically tells my story. So if somebody
Yes.
wants to know more, they can read the whole thing. And I also weave in the stories of lots of other teachers and parents and kids around the country who were brave enough to let me tell their stories. So what happened for me is, I told you about, I witnessed that teacher bullying little kids, abusing little kids. They were first graders. They came up to her waist. They were terrified. I was terrified. I was terrified.
Yeah.
I stood eye to eye with her and I was terrified. So I couldn't imagine what the kids were going through. And when I discovered there was nothing I could do about it, I decided I never wanted to be a part of this union. So I signed my first contract a few months later, and the union, they're on top of you the minute you sign. Well, join the union. And I said, well, no, thanks. I don't want to join. You guys let teachers abuse kids, and you defend the teacher instead of the kids. And they said, well, too bad. If you want to teach, you'll pay us. So that's when I discovered that paying a union was a condition of employment in the United States of America, if you were a government employee, which is how they rake in hundreds of billions annually, government unions. I mean, it's a lot of money, and they rake it in tax free, and they spend it all on politics. So,
Right.
it's not just George Soros people, it's the government union.
Sure it is.
So here I was forced to pay them. And throughout my career, Debbie, it was several things that happened. I mentioned that the unions were trying to destroy a parent's right to choose how to educate their children. The unions want every single child in a government-run education. I call them the education cartel. They want every child
Sure.
under their thumb, right? And getting a horrible education, by the way. And I was against that. So throughout my career, I just kept pushing back on the unions, and I really wasn't making any progress, which is why I became a union rep. Didn't make any progress there, but I was a rep for 3 years, Debbie, and I saw a lot on the inside. And they were
That was good of
bullying
you.
me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was God. Everything
That
I've
wasn't
done really
easy, I'm
is.
sure.
It wasn't easy at all. It was very hard. But everything I've done to push back on the unions has always been because I'm complaining to God about some problem, with the school day. And what are you going to do about this, God? And you know how he is. He's like, well, how about you? And so each time, I would go do whatever I believed he was asking me to do. So when I served as union rep for 3 years, I saw such extreme corruption. And this is the straw that broke the. I mean, they bullied us. They bullied the union reps too. If we dared to question, we don't like our money being spent on politics. Oh, and they come right down on you and get around you and bully you. I mean, very thuggery. So, but the straw that broke the camel's back was I was a union rep during the Obama administration, and remember the whole economy collapsed. So we discovered that a lot of teachers were going to lose their job, and the teachers who were going to be laid off were not the ones abusing the kids and doing a horrible job. They were the most recently hired, because unions have this rule, last hired, first fired, which is ridiculous. You should lose your job because you don't have the merit to do your job, not because you're good and you just happen to be young or new. So these wonderful teachers that were going to lose their job, one of them had been my student teacher. All of them, I had been spending on my personal time, I had been teaching them how to teach writing to kids, and they were able to bring up our district scores by 75%. So they should have been rewarded, but they were going to lose their jobs. So as a union rep, I went to the union. First, I went to the teachers and I said, hey, I've discovered from our superintendent that if we take a 3% pay cut across the board, we can save everybody's job, no layoffs. What do y'all think about that? All the teachers were on board. Of course, they wanted to save their friends' jobs. They wanted to keep class sizes down. We all teach in a low-income neighborhood. They wanted to help the families to have a good education, right? The teachers wanted the right thing.
Nice solution.
Exactly.
From you. Okay.
Exactly. And I told them too, I said, the community is taking a huge hit. We had a lot of parents moving back in with the grandparents. I mean, families doubling up because they didn't have any money. Their jobs were cut, their hours were cut. They were suffering. I said, we're a union. Don't we stand in solidarity? Let's stand in solidarity with our community. Right. So my teacher friends agreed. So I took it to the union.
Oh,
It was the union that said, no way. The teachers will never go for this. I said, teachers are already going for it. I nagged the union for 6 months. I'm middle child of 5. I'm pretty good at nagging. Nag the unions for 6 months. Please, will you let me create a survey monkey so I can prove that the majority of teachers want this? If 51% say they don't want it, I won't say another word. But if 51% say they do want it, we have a discussion. No, they wouldn't allow. Okay, the NEA, the union, claims to be the largest democratic deliberative body in the world. That is a lie, capital L-I-E, lie. They wouldn't even let me do a survey of our teachers, a democratic survey, to find out what they wanted. Instead, Debbie, here's what the union president said to me after 6 months of nagging. Rebecca, don't worry about those teachers who are going to lose their job. The union's going to take care of them. We're going to give them a seminar on how to get unemployment benefits.
Oh,
okay?
Brother.
Okay, my jaw dropped. All right, these are teachers who want to work. These are not people who want to be supported by their Exactly. And there was a job for them if the union would just agree to a 3% pay cut. Why doesn't the union want a 3% pay cut? Because then the dues aren't as high. That's the bottom line. They didn't care about the teachers or the community. They wanted more dues. So I looked at our union president and I was just like, I can't
Are
be a
you
part of
kidding
this
me?
anymore.
Right.
I couldn't believe it. So, and then they twisted the teachers' minds. They all lost their jobs and were sitting in the teachers' lounge. And the teachers go, "Oh, the district doesn't care about me. They say all these bad things about me. They're letting me go." And I said, "It wasn't the district. They wanted to save your job. It was your union." So somehow the teachers are always manipulated to trust the union and think
Right.
the district's the bad guy. But anyone bad in the district's been put there by the union. So, please, I'm praying teachers will wake up to that. So at that point, Debbie, I stepped down from the union. I still had to pay them as a condition of employment, but I stepped down and I sent a letter to all the union leadership and explained to them my disgust with the union. And it's nothing
Mhm.
personal, but I can't be a part of this anymore. And they all told me they respected me until about a month later, again, through my Bible study, I'm talking to God about, what can be done about this. I keep reading editorials in the newspaper that say the unions are great and that they're good for teachers. It's all lies. And so, the Lord sort of taps on my shoulder, why don't you write a rebuttal? Why don't you write an editorial? So I started writing editorials.
Ah.
I didn't even know how to submit an editorial, Debbie. No idea. Okay. I knew how to write a letter to the editor. I had no idea. Okay. I don't want people to think I had some connections. I was a kindergarten teacher. I had no clue. So, I send my editorial with a lame note to letters to the editor, can you send this to the right department? I don't know how to submit it. They printed it. And it was picked up all over the nation by online outlets because nobody had ever heard a teacher dare to say, no, the union doesn't speak for us. These are all lies.
Mm.
So that began my journey. All I want to do was get editorials out there. And
Sure.
within
Have a
6 months,
discussion. Have a discussion.
exactly. And teachers would come to me quietly, never in public.
Oh, I'm
Hey, I
sure.
agree with you, Rebecca. Thanks for writing that. But nobody wanted to stand with me publicly. But within 6 months of that first editorial, I found myself as lead plaintiff in a federal lawsuit heading to the United States Supreme Court, suing the very unions I was trying to expose. And our whole goal was to stop forced unionism so that no government employee would ever again have
Mm.
to fund a union against their will. And they don't have to anymore. If you're listening, you don't have to pay a government union one penny anymore. They will lie to you. They will tell you you don't.
It's
Don't have
no
to give them a
longer a
penny.
condition for employment.
Not a condition of employment. They can't fire you over it. And we have all the free resources to help you get out. So I can help you with that too. And so we sued them. And here I was, a kindergarten teacher. All of a sudden, I'm doing interviews on Fox News, and I'm traveling, and I mean I was not only a kindergarten teacher. I had been a single mom for 7 years. I was married at this point. I got remarried, to the husband I'm married to now. But I was a single mom for 7 years. I mean, I wasn't
Wow.
somebody who traveled. I
Sure.
didn't, I was barely surviving at some points. And so now, my whole life changed. I was still teaching, but I'm also traveling. I'm speaking to lawyers and policy groups and hosts of television shows. And I mean, talk about a fish out of water. So, I mean, if I could do it, anybody could do it. And, by the grace of God and by the doors that he opens. And so, we were eventually successful. There's a whole journey that happened to us, during our lawsuit after it was heard at the U.S. Supreme Court. But the bottom line is no one has to pay a government employee union anymore, not one penny. And I'm so thankful and proud of that because, in my opinion, government unions are the root cause of
Yeah.
every single wicked problem you are fighting. Every
Yeah.
single one. You
This is
name the
it.
problem, I can take you to the union so you can
Well,
see that they're behind it.
that's it. We've got to start breaking, cracking that huge foundation that they have in all of these facets of society, because they are so, so powerful. What do you say to teachers now, and where do you think where do you think this is all going to end up as far as the union and the control that they have at schools? Do you feel that unions, I mean, it's gotten so crazy, right, Rebecca? I mean, like you said, I think parent or teachers used to kind of like quietly go along because, oh well, we'll go along with this. But now it's like that you've got all the grooming and the transitioning and secrets behind parents and boys and girls locker. I mean, all of this has exploded so much, and it's happening in the school. Literally, these teachers have signed up for something they never wanted to be a part of.
Exactly. So, oh, how I wish I had a bully pulpit to speak to every teacher in the United
Yeah.
States of America and
As if
beyond,
you
because
are,
these
as if you are right
I mean,
now to the
yeah.
teachers listening.
Well, and so what I'm asking is to the people who are listening who are not teachers,
Mm.
please deliver this message to every teacher you know, and to every person you know who knows a teacher who might deliver it, because we can't reach them all, but we need to. And this is not only happening in America; it's worldwide. These unions
Sure.
are infiltrating.
Oh, yeah.
So I would say to teachers, loving teachers who are there for all the right reasons, who were called into this profession, you can save our schools and you can save our country by rejecting unions. Teachers have to find their courage. If teachers continue to say, to be kind of, most teachers don't realize the union's the bad guy yet. They still think the union's their savior. I know teachers who they think the union's practically Jesus Christ. He's going to take care of everything. And it's because the unions, they're going to get you a raise and they're going to get you a pension.
And they're
But
fighting
teachers,
for you.
they're supposedly fighting for you. But the truth is, teachers, the reason they're giving you that raise and that pension, that by the way, that pension is damaging most of the country because they're unsustainable. The reason they're doing that is because they're manipulating you to stay with them and to continue paying them so that they can gain access to the vulnerable children in your care, because they want to sexualize every child. Yep. They want to sexualize every child. They want to undermine every parent, including you. They want to sexualize your children and undermine your parental rights and your rights as a teacher. These people do not love America and they do not love family. They want to destroy the family structure because they're communists, and communists must destroy the family because this family is the foundation of society. They hate God. They hate your values. Even if you're not a Christian or a Jew and you don't necessarily, have that faith, I'll guarantee if you're a good American, you believe in Judeo-Christian values, like don't lie, like honor your mother and father, like, show up for work on time and do your job properly. We would say it, do it as unto the Lord. But you have the same values. The unions don't share your values. They hate your values. They don't love your kids. They want to exploit your kids. Yeah. They don't love you. They want to exploit you. And the reason they do it through schools, communists have done this for decades. They go through schools because they can't manipulate grown-ups who already have fully developed minds and thoughts and, know how to push back a little. They have to get the kids who are vulnerable and who can be manipulated, who still believe in the tooth fairy and Santa Claus.
Sure.
They have to manipulate those minds. Right. Exactly, the vulnerable. So teachers, if you love the kids, you'll fight the unions. If you love your country, if you love your freedom, if you love your parental rights, you'll stop paying unions. You'll realize that they are giving you money to get you to damage the country and the kids. I know you're not doing the damage yourself, but your money is. The teacher unions alone are collecting about $5 billion annually from educators, and they collect it tax-free. Yeah, tax-free, and they use it all. They use it all to put radical people in office like Biden. Okay, that regime is 100%. The unions are behind that regime. Right. And to put. Teachers might not know. Health teachers don't have to have a credential anymore because they want to bring in Planned Parenthood to sexualize your kids. Did you know that schools around the country have contracts with Planned Parenthood? Because real teachers won't teach the radical sexualization of kids, but Planned Parenthood will. Your union did that. So I would just plea with teachers. I know you're scared. I know they bully you. I know they make your life miserable. I know that they scare you, and to talk against a union on campus is like a death sentence. I know. I've done it. I've walked in your shoes. Please do it. And do it. I'd say to the parents listening, the teachers can't do it alone. Teachers, I told you school board meetings were empty for decades. I would go, nobody was there. Teachers have been standing alone in this nightmare. And that's how the evil took over, right? If the parents, I've heard a lot of parents, they get mad at teachers because they don't understand. It's really the union, not the good teachers. So if parents will start standing with good teachers, stand together, oh my goodness, there's nothing stopping us. That's going to give the teachers the courage.
1 second here, Rebecca, because I'm going to throw to a quick break, and I want to come back and I want to hear this exact advice to our parents that are listening, because parents don't know whether they want to stay in public education, if they should be bringing their kids home, if they should be at private education. I want to get your advice to parents right after this break. So hold on for 1 second, please.
What kind of America do you want to leave future generations? What do you want America to look like for your children and your grandchildren? Our nation is at a crossroads, and it will be us, the mothers of America, who will determine the future of our country. What we teach and nurture in the hearts of our children and how we vote will make all the difference. If you love God, respect life, honor family, and cherish freedom, then use your voice and be heard. We teach these values in our home. Let's secure them with our vote.
Okay, Rebecca, you started talking about parents. So I want to come back to that, because you're talking to the mamas right now. They don't know what to do. And they don't know if they should trust their kids to the school system. I know you're talking to the teachers, stand up, be strong, go to the school board. Should we bring them home and school and homeschool them? Should we try to afford private education? What's your opinion at this point, and what's your advice? I know it's different for every home, obviously, every mom that's listening, but I would like your advice on this. What do
Yeah,
they
I would
do? Where do
start.
they go?
I would start that it's different for everyone. Okay. I don't know your individual situation. Like I said, I was a single mom for 7 years. So obviously
Right.
my situation with a little boy at that time was very different than somebody who's married. But my number one piece of advice, if you can do it, homeschool. Homeschooling, in my opinion, is the best option if you use great curricula, classically based curricula, which includes Western civilization and biblical training and reading the
Biblical
classics
worldview, yeah.
and the biblical worldview. Why do I say that? Especially if you're a person of faith, the scripture tells you that it's your job. God tells you it's your job to raise your children
Right.
in the Lord. It's not the government's job. So actually before the unions came along in the late 1800s, almost all of America was homeschooled.
Yeah.
Homeschooled, or little one-room schoolhouses, or little neighborhood groups that we would call co-ops now. That's how all of America was educated until the unions came along. It was the unions that started the public school system and the whole nightmare along with it. So let's get back to the beginning. I mean, I think we could fix everything by going back to how our founders set things up, which is basically one-room schoolhouse model, homeschool model. So that'd be the first thing. One-room schoolhouse is great. If you're interested in that model, I am a part of an organization called Public School Exit, and we train people on how to start a one-room schoolhouse. Be happy to help. And the training is dirt cheap too. It's amazing how inexpensive it is. But I would recommend also co-ops. People, first of all, the unions. Just so you know,
It all comes back to those bad guys.
if someone has told you you don't have what it takes to teach your child because you need an expert, that's a union talking point that they created to make you feel too stupid to teach your own kids. No, you are the best educator for your child. I don't care if you don't speak English. You're the best educator for your child. And while you're teaching your child English phonics, you'll learn the language if you're a second language learner. And the unions also, tell parents, homeschooled kids don't have any social skills. That's a union talking point, and it's a lie. I know so many homeschooled kids. They've not only have great social skills, they're not being bullied on the playground, and their parents can help choose who they're hanging out with. It's a great system. Homeschooling is great. So homeschooling, co-ops. There's something called an independent learning academy model that we have in Public School Exit. Working together with your neighborhood, which I would call a co-op. Private schools are great, but you have to be really careful with the private school model you choose. If your private school is taking money from the federal government, you might find the same woke, crazy curriculum inside your private school. It's just, you have to do a lot of homework. Even a lot of the Catholic schools are now taking public funding. So you have to really be careful. Choose your school wisely if you're going to do a private school model. Make sure that school is teaching phonics and critical thinking, and that the parents are required to volunteer and be in, because if parents are required to be volunteered, they want parents on campus, right? They're not trying to squeeze you out and hide things from you. So just be really careful. And then I would just urge parents, you are so capable. I hear parents all the time, oh, I just can't do it. My kids are too hard for me. Yeah, I know our kids are always hardest for us, but you can do it. You can totally do it. And
Yes. Yes, and
it
amen.
would be so beautiful if a lot of these teachers out there who are stuck in the public school system or who think they can't make any money outside the public school system, so they stay in there miserable, they have PTSD, they're so frustrated. Wouldn't it be great if we created a bunch of little co-ops or homeschool co-ops or whatever, where these
Yes.
teachers could come in and be hired as tutors to help you so they could still make a living, a good living, and they don't have to be a part of this wicked system? The more we all do things like that, the quicker we can break down the public school system, just make it irrelevant, right? Now, let's say you're a parent who, no matter what I've said, you're telling me the only option you have is public school. You have zero other option.
Okay.
Then I would say to you, you better be in that classroom all the time. Even if
Yeah.
you work full time, find a way to get involved. And you better
Looking at
be at
that
every school.
curriculum and looking at those
Oh man,
surveys and looking
go
at those classes and
and
understanding
go through every
what's
page of the
happening.
curricula, because
Yeah.
here's what the public schools do. They're going to send you as a parent a link. Oh, here you can check out this curricula. Let's say the sex ed. It's always redacted. They show you the few pages that aren't offensive. But if you go
Sure.
in and read the 600 pages, you're going to see what they're presenting to your children. So I would just say to any parent that's going to keep your child in a public school, and I hope I don't offend people by the way I say this, but this is the best way I can think to say it. Don't keep your head in the sand. Pull
Mhm.
your head way out of the sand and look at everything. Request your teacher every year. Study those teachers and request the best teacher. If they won't let you request a teacher, pick a different school. The other thing you can do in the public school system, my husband's the president of a charter school network. He's a volunteer. He doesn't get paid one penny for being the school board president over these 4 charter schools. Charter schools are run very differently. They're public schools funded by public money. They get about 75 cents on the dollar of regular public schools, but they typically don't have a union. So they're trying to do what's best
Ah,
for the kids. Some charter schools are not good, but some are very good. So if you have a
that's a
good
good
charter
point.
school in your,
Hmm.
yeah, so if you have a good one in your community that is, understands the unions are bad and is not going to let the unions come in and take
Oh,
over, you
it's good
might be
about
able
the
to
charter
find a really
schools.
good education. Yeah, and then the last thing I would recommend, there are some, okay, the way the public schools handled, these crazy lockdowns and throwing
Oh,
teachers onto,
right. Right.
Zoom and nobody knows what they're doing, that's insane. Okay, but there are a few really good online schools out there. One of them is called Freedom Project Academy. I think that's the name. We have some friends whose kids attend. It's an online school. It's a classical academy, and it's not very expensive. Your kids do it from your home. If you're one of those parents who's like, I'd love to homeschool, but I feel like I can't do it, hire a school like this, an online school where all you have to do is monitor, and the
Mm-hmm.
kids are learning from the online school that also has
Mm-hmm.
tutors and teachers that are available to help. So the good thing is there's a zillion more options out
There
there
sure
now
is.
than there
That's really
used to be.
right. That's the exciting part of all this. Even just what you're talking about, that online school. I have some friends where they actually like kind of rent a classroom at their church, and all the kids are on different, they go there, they do school there, they have a teacher there that helps tutor them, and it's online school, but you still get the community. I mean, like you said, there's so many options now for education. And again, I do think that so many moms, teachers, everybody's waking up. Everybody's seeing the writing on the wall, and that education is to be handled differently. And thanks to you and other mamas that are out there fighting for uh, full transparency and a new way, a new look at everything, we're making great strides. Tell us about your website, Rebecca, so our moms can check out your information, get your book. If we've got teachers here that are in the unions, they can read your story, use your materials, public school exit, the whole 9 yards. What's the website?
I'd love to. Thanks so much for the opportunity. So it's called forkidsandcountry.org. That's FOR, kids, AND, country.org. And at forkidsandcountry.org, we aim to be kind of a one-stop shop. So if you want to help us reach teachers, click on Liberate Teachers. And under Liberate Teachers is an Adopt a Teacher flyer. It takes you 3 minutes to learn how to put your arm around a teacher and love on them and say, hey, you've been funding the demise of your own kids in your own country, and I want to help you with this. And then the second thing under Liberate Teachers is Union Exit. It's a simple 3-step process for teachers to leave the unions. free of charge. We don't charge them anything. And our step one is a toolkit, because those teachers are going to ask you questions you can't answer. Like, they think they're going to lose their job if they leave the union. So we answer all those frequently asked questions, and it's a short, like 3-page toolkit, real simple. And then we walk them through the opt-out process, literally online. They find their state, they find their union, we walk them through it. And then we also leave the number one reason teachers don't want to leave the union is they think they need the union's liability insurance. The truth is, union liability insurance is inferior. It will only defend you if you get sued. If there's a job action against you, a false accusation, they won't defend you. You're on your own. So we send teachers, so step 3 of our union exit is we send teachers to, we don't sell it, but we send them to organizations that will sell them alternative liability insurance for a fraction of the cost, double the coverage, better coverage, and it'll cover them if there's a job action or a false accusation. So that's all part of getting teachers out of the darkness of the lies they've been told by the unions, right? So union exit's huge, under the Liberate Teachers button. And then if you want to find alternatives for education, whether you're a teacher or a parent, that's our the public school exit. You just go under school options. So under school options, we walk you through our relationship with public school exit and helping you to find alternative ways to teach your kids or leave the public schools as a teacher. And then my book is on the website. You just click on it and it'll take you to where you can purchase it. It's called Standing Up to Goliath. And it, just tells my story, fighting the unions, and the stories of many others. And there are 3 chapters on the sex ed alone to help you to understand how the unions are the ones that wrote the laws and pushed in the sex ed, and how, they're radicalizing our kids. And like I said, there's a chapter on the PTA and how it was corrupted. There's teachers should know. There's a chapter on, have you noticed that your school's become a war zone and your classroom's a war zone? Well, the unions wrote the policy to make it so you can't suspend kids of color anymore. It was pushed through the Obama administration, but the unions wrote it, and it came with huge government carrots. And so the reason you can't control your class anymore and teachers are being assaulted is thanks to the unions. So there's a chapter on that, and and just chapters on all kinds of helping people to connect the dots.
Resource,
That this is, the unions are the problem. And then we also have I write editorials all the time. We have another writer, Roger, and another writer, Larry Sand. Larry's a former teacher as well. So those are under our news section. And we also have videos, short videos that you can share with friends to help them to awaken. So everything's there for your use, and we hope you'll visit us at forkidsancountry.org. We also hope you'll sign up for our newsletter. So we send out very rarely emails, a couple times a month, a few times a month maybe to share an editorial or something. We hope you'll sign up.
Well, we've been using your materials and sharing your resource with our moms for a long time. So thank you, Rebecca. Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for being a warrior. I love the title of your book because it does seem like it's a big old Goliath out there that we have to take down. But boy, David just had a few stones, and look at what he did. And that's all of us. That is all of us. We are all warriors in this culture battle, especially for the hearts and souls of our children. So we love you. Thank you.
Well, I love y'all too, and I'm so happy to be a part of Moms for America. Thanks for having me on today.
Thanks, Rebecca. Wow, that Rebecca is a powerhouse. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for the great stands that you are taking in educating moms, teachers on what's happening in the school system. Again, visit her website and get all that information there. Also, at Moms for America, we have some initiatives as well. Like I said, we use Rebecca's information as a resource, but we have another great resource that we have with Dr. Kelly Coles. It's called the National School Board Leadership Council. You can get that information on our website, momsforamerica.us. Also assists teachers on how to improve education, run for school board, deal with unions as well. So a lot of information with Rebecca and Moms for America, momsforamerica.us, and check out the National School Board Leadership Council. Great information for you there. Also, we have great programs, resources, webinars, seminars, all at momsforamerica.us. So when you're there, please take advantage of all that. It is all free, complimentary. We are here really supporting you moms in your journey through motherhood. Check out the cottage meetings, check it all out, sign up for our newsletter, and we can let you know what's happening every week here at Moms for America. I look forward to seeing you next week on the Moms for America podcast. Please share this with your moms, your teachers. We all got to get the information out. And as always, let's keep changing our world one home at a time. Talk with you soon, moms. Thanks.